From the radio round, welcome to Radio Round.
And welcome back to the Dr. Anonymous Show, live on Blog Talk Radio. And on the line we have with us right now, Avash Kalra and Shami Das. Welcome to the show there, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Glad to be here.
I think I've been wanting to get you guys on the show for a long time, and I know just with scheduling and things, it's taken a little bit of a while. But I just want to let you guys know I've admired your show for a long time, and it's very well done. Let me start with Avash here before we get into the show here. Sure. Why don't you just kind of share with us kind of your path towards medical school? How did you, kind of your background as far as where you went to college and what kind of drew you towards medicine in the first place?
Sure. Well, like so many of us in medical school, I guess we all have a unique path and different reasons for wanting to go to medical school. But I guess originally, I'll start from the beginning. I grew up in England and moved to the U.S. when I was 11. And eventually, after high school, I went to Cornell University for my undergrad, and I was a psychology major there. And I kind of got involved in a lot of journalism activities at that time. I wrote for the newspaper. I started writing for a couple other publications. Started becoming interested in medicine through a medical assistant program that they had at the health center there that I became involved in as far as started seeing some patients with the nurses, and that kind of got me interested in the field. And the other thing that drew me to medicine at that point was that I sort of enjoyed the storytelling aspect of medicine. When I first arrived at college at Cornell, I was an English major, and storytelling was kind of my thing, and I sort of saw an opportunity to do that through medicine as well. And took a little time off after college. I did some research, worked at the National Institutes of Health and then the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and then applied to medical school and started a couple years ago, and I'm a third-year student now.
Shami, I want you to share a little bit about your story, your path that led you towards applying to medical school.
It was a long path. It took a few attempts, to be honest, but I think ever since I was young, I've always had this fascination of trying to understand the world around me and, how things worked and always asking why. And I think for me, it persisted all the way through, elementary school, middle school, high school, college. And at an early age, I got a fascination with health, like what is it that makes some people, healthy and other people undergo illnesses and disease, and that process. And then it became, well, you can get the knowledge, but, I want to do something where I can actually use the knowledge and help other people. And it sounds kind of cliche, but for me, it was really about understanding, how the human body works and then being able to use that knowledge for good, meaning, giving people the opportunities that, could make a huge impact on their lives, whether they are healthy, they recover from disease, they can do the things that they want to do. And I think that's something that's a privilege for a lot of people.
Just going over your bio here, Avash, you wrote for your school college newspaper, but were you formally trained in journalism, or was that just an interest that you were writing, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I've never been formally trained other than through the constant feedback from editors, but I sort of, for as long as I can remember, I've written for, school newspapers and stuff like that. I started really writing a lot back in middle school, started writing for the newspaper at our school, and then that continued into high school. And a lot of the stuff that I wrote originally in high school and beyond, so a little bit in college, was a lot of sports journalism as well, so a lot of sports reporting, particularly ice hockey, in fact. And the column that I had for the newspaper in undergrad was actually an arts and entertainment column, So I sort of did a whole variety of different types of writing, and now I actually write a column for the Dayton Daily News called Notes from a Med Student, where I kind of talk about my experiences going through medical school. So I've kind of done a lot of different things. I've learned as I've gone along, and it's a lot of fun for me. I consider it a hobby, and hopefully I can continue it as I move along.
Now, did you do any kind of like electronic writing, like blogs or anything like that at all, or before the podcast?
We actually, when we first started Radio Rounds back in the spring of 2008, we did have a blog before we switched over to our RadioRounds.org site. We would kind of post our thoughts on our shows and things, and we kind of transitioned to instead writing a sort of a full recap of each episode on our website. So we started off writing a blog, and I kind of maintained that at the beginning, but we've kind of gone away from that as we've moved along and become more busy as med students.
My guest on the line here is Avash Kalra, the creator, founder, and host of Radio Rounds, and also Swami Das, the executive producer of Radio Rounds. And let's dive into this a little bit here, Avash. Just kind of describe to us kind of what was the inception of your mind as far as what was your vision of this of Radio Rounds when you're like, I think we should, I would presume tell stories.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, as I mentioned, I wanted to continue some sort of journalism outlet for myself in medical school, and I wasn't sure at first how that was going to happen. When I arrived at Wright State as a first-year student, I sort of learned that the undergraduate university here has a student-run radio station, and it's a pretty nice station. It's an FM feed here in Dayton, and I kind of started looking into the possibility of maybe doing a show there. Originally, I sort of thought that it could be like an audio newsletter type thing for our school. And to be honest, when I first started considering the idea and looking into the possibility of getting a spot on their lineup, I didn't consider as much having a sort of a national show for medical students in general. I thought it would just be for our school or for our class. And it wasn't until after the first show or two that we sort of realized that we had the opportunity to do something sort of special. It had never been done before as far as a radio program produced by medical students. And we sort of saw that there was interest in the public. The first episode that we did, much to our surprise and really sort of humbled us a little bit too, we learned that it broke the online listening record for the radio station at Wright State. People had heard about the show premiering and were interested. So we sort of saw it as an opportunity really to, open up the door for the general public to sort of get a glimpse into what our life is like, and really conversely to get pre-medical and medical students a glimpse of what it's like in the medical profession itself. And so we sort of try and do that through the guests that we speak to, because we sort of feel like we are a gateway or, in limbo sort of between the general public and fully practicing physicians. So we try and bring that perspective.
I know that the season one, a lot of the episodes are, I guess, in the process of being put up, and I know that I was looking at your schedule, and your first guest was and has been and one of my family medicine mentors, Gary Leroy, and be very curious when that is up to take a listen to that. But listening to your show, it has a very much of a feel like an NPR type of feel, National Public Radio type of feel. Was that by design?
That I think that's probably my influence, if anything. I'm a huge podcast listener, especially NPR, and I love listening to it while I drive. And so I think from the very beginning, what kind of as Avash had mentioned, we really had to choose a direction for the show. Would we want to be a private organization, or would we want to try to sell the show to somebody else, or what did we want to do with it? And I think we're at a crossroads. And my preference, and I think the guys agree with this, is we want to see ourselves as in that venue, in the public radio arena, simply because it affords itself to more credibility in some respect. And for the most part, this is a service for our listeners. And, whether they be the general public or students who are aspiring to be in medicine or who are in medicine, for us, this was just a venue to provide service in another way other than treating, their health care, for example. And so a lot of the inspiration for our show, including the transformations that it's undergone and continues to undergo, are due largely to the influences in public radio, and kind of the look and the feel and the style of public radio as it continues to affect our growth.
Now, when you guys were kind of conceiving your first season, season 1, I think you were saying that you were kind of trying to maybe focus this to a medical student type of audience. Did you kind of know, what kind of guests you wanted to get on, or was it just, was it difficult to get guests on your show because you had no track record? Can you describe a little bit about, kind of trying to create the first season?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that. As far as our original challenge of getting guests on, we were working very, very much week to week back in those days of season 1. Sort of, it would be Thursday or Friday, and we'd be wondering still trying to get the guests for Sunday afternoon, just trying to get our name out there. We did a lot of local physicians here in Dayton, faculty members, and you mentioned obviously Dr. Leroy, who's a great mentor. Certainly, you mentioned of you and all of us here at Wright State as well. But we did focus a lot on local physicians, and it sort of became easier and easier as we went along, and as we started to get a big name or two on the show. I think it was our 6th episode where we had Rachel Naomi Remen, who was the best-selling author of Kitchen Table Wisdom, and sort of those sorts of things. Those people who helped us out at the beginning kind of helped us gain a little bit of credibility in the medical journalism field. And we certainly didn't try and get any physicians on as far as to talk about technical aspects of medicine, much like your show, sort of focus on personal interest stories and things that anyone can find interesting to the show, something unique to add to the discussion.
Now, Swami, when Avash came to you with this idea and like, hey, I think we can do this, and I need your help with this, and kind of what was your reaction to presenting of this conception of this idea?
I think it's funny because I was probably a little bit more skeptical than Watchmen, who immediately saw the brilliance in the idea and jumped right on board. I still wasn't sure, and I think it was just as Avash had mentioned. After the first couple shows, I realized that there's a lot more to this than what we are currently doing or were doing in that time. And after that, it's we've all been all in, and that means really all in because last year and even the year before we were doing shows on test weekends, and to anyone else it would seem insane as to why we would spend our time when we have an exam on Monday and we're sitting here in the studio on Sunday afternoon doing a show. Who in the right mind would do that? But I think it's from the very first realization that this is going to be a big deal, and it's a unique opportunity. And I think because of that and the enjoyment we each get out of it, it's a huge privilege and honor to actually be a part of the show and to be part of this project. So I think after that it was all downhill, and it really consumes our free time now.
And Avash, I know you just typed that in the chat room. Maybe just tell us a little bit about Watchmen Swami, who couldn't be with us, and kind of what his role was in those early type of days in the planning process.
Yeah, well, Watchmen has been there really just as so is Swami. Really, we've all been there from basically the beginning. Now, Watchmen is also a third-year student, as Swami and I also are here at the Boonshoff School of Medicine at Wright State University, and he, much like us, had interesting experiences leading up to medical school. He worked at the Cleveland Clinic in a lab there, and we're all sort of non-traditional in the sense that we took some time off to gain some other perspectives and experiences before medical school. And Watchmen is also in the dual degree MD, MBA program, just as Swami is, and he wishes he could have been here tonight. But Watchmen is, he co-hosted the show with me from day one, and as we've gone along, Watchmen and I still try and host as much as we can. We've sort of added some additional hosts as we've gone along, but he's certainly an integral part to the show.